Hi, welcome to Talking Books and Stuff, the program that talks all about books and writing and stuff. Here's your host, Dennis Rimmer.
Hello once again. Welcome back to Talking Books and Writing and Stuff. I am your host, Dennis Rimmer from Radisson, Saskatchewan. And with us today, we have from back east in the 416 area code, it's David Clayton-Thomas. And how are things back there?
We call it Toronto.
Oh, Toronto. That's right. Because people in the U.S., they say Toronto. But
No, we don't say Toronto.
No.
We say Toronto.
Toronto.
Good morning, Dennis. How are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you keeping during this all this COVID stuff?
Well, like everybody else, we're hanging in there from day to day. It's completely destroyed our industry. There won't be concerts now. I had $500,000 in concerts disappeared in one day.
Yes, it's terrible.
There will be no concerts in 2020.
Well, are you rebooking for 2021?
Yeah, they've moved already. Some of the concerts have been moved into 2021. But, that's not helping a lot of the musicians today. Musicians, first of all, their recording and royalty income has already been decimated by crooks like Spotify, who are basically just stealing their music. So they were forced into the only thing left for them was clubs and concerts. And now that's gone. So literally every musician in Canada, and we have some of the finest in the world, are unemployed. They're looking for other businesses now. A lot of people are leaving the music business because there's just no way to earn a living in it.
And that's such a shame because I feel sympathetic, and I'm self-distancing, and we are in our household, and we've expanded our circle a little bit, but I put the mask on and stuff, but I'm getting to a point where here in Saskatchewan, and by the time this goes on the air, it'll be the middle of June, I think maybe things can loosen up a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Let's get out there a bit more and enjoy things.
It's not going to loosen up for the music industry. The music industry has been hit with a fatal blow. Even the agents called us up earlier, a couple of weeks ago, and basically said, guys, write off 2020. Even if it's legal to go to, say, Massey Hall by September, how long is it going to take before people feel comfortable sitting shoulder to shoulder inside of Massey Hall again?
Yeah.
And it's a tragedy because they just renovated our Massey Hall, one of the most beautiful concert halls in the world. And there's a chance that it just may never be used.
It's far more far-reaching than we think when you think of all the industries that are affected that aren't necessarily top of mind. I never thought of Massey Hall as being...
It's survivable for me, but when you mention that, how about the musicians that are basically living from rent check to rent check? How about the road crews and the stage hands and the electricians and all the people that are involved in making music happen? They're not rich people. I'm okay. I got a little money in the bank. I'll survive this. But just about everybody else I know in Toronto is facing the possibility of maybe losing their apartment, losing their car. They can't pay their rent. And these are people with master's degrees from Humber College,
Right.
They're broke, and more people are just saying, okay, we're not going into the music business anymore. Let's go into real estate or anything else. But the music business is no longer a viable way of earning a living. And it's going to be a shame. We're all going to be the poorer for that.
No kidding. And speaking of music, I was listening to Say Something. Now that's your newest release.
Ironically, because we've all been locked in and shut down, that record is selling like crazy.
Well, it should. It's your new record. Came out in March of 2020.
Yeah, and everybody's home and got nothing else to do but order new records. So we're actually...
Well, one of the songs...
It's not a bad thing.
One of the
songs...
But
we can't go out there and promote it.
No, you can't.
And of course, in this day and age today, the Spotify age, we don't make any money from records. We make money by putting a record out and then going on the road and doing concerts.
Yes.
So they basically have cut off both ends of the limb here. We're stuck in the middle.
Well, one of the songs on Say Something is The System, and it's the system is relentless, the cycle never ends, the same kids getting arrested over and over again, out of sight, out of mind. Were you one of those kids back in your teens?
Yes, of course I was.
Yep.
That's why I wrote the song.
Yep.
I wrote that song because I'm involved with an organization, a national organization called Peace Builders. I urge that you Google it. It's a very well-known and very esteemed organization. And what we do is we have parliamentarians, we have top attorneys on our board, we have the Lieutenant Governor of Canada on our board. And what we do is we try to get these kids, before they get sent off to a reformatory, kids 15 to 18 years old, and divert them away from the courts and into counseling. And I did a big concert here at Corner Hall last November as a fundraiser for Peace Builders. We raised a lot of money for them. And I wrote the song basically as a theme song for Peace Builders.
Well, the special thing about the song is that it has the message, of course, plainly stated, but it's not ranting and raving, if you know what I'm saying. It's a gentle, almost easygoing song, but you hear it and then you want to hear it again, and then it sticks in the mind. And good.
It's one of my favorite tunes on the album.
Yeah.
But you can get some ranting and raving on there too if you like.
Yeah. Well, the other one, The Circus, like you said, who would believe that stuff? I can't believe it. And this guy, the orange-headed carbuncle, as a friend of mine calls him, down there in the US of A, gets elected. I take it you're not a big fan of Donald Trump.
Oh no, not at all. I think the United States has hiccuped here. I think they made a huge, horrible mistake. And I'll be very pleased if the United States of America survives him. Right now, he's just on a rampage. He's just ripping their government to pieces. See, I lived there for 40 years. I have a lot of affection for the United States. I have a lot of New Yorker friends and a lot of friends in California and a lot of friends in the business. And I love the United States. I hate to see what's happened to it.
Well, the same for me. I lived there for almost 20 years and have friends and relatives on the West Coast mainly, Bellingham, Washington area, just south of Vancouver.
Sure.
So
area.
I know what you're saying. I didn't quite take out citizenship, but maybe I should have, and I could have thrown my one vote in.
No, I was urged many times in the 40 years that I lived in New York. I had the group's lawyers always saying, take out citizenship, become a U.S. citizen, you know. I went, no, I'm a Canuck.
Well,
First-generation Canadian, you just don't erase that.
Nope.
I always knew I'd come back here to live someday.
Oh, good. So, and we're glad you did. And how did you get into the States? Like, what kind of papers did you have to fill out, or did you just kind of show up one day like an illegal immigrant?
No. I was... when I joined Blood, Sweat, and Tears, we did everything on the up and up, and I got permanent residency, and then I got a white card. I got a diplomatic ambassador status because I went behind the Iron Curtain and did State Department tours.
Right.
And that gave me a special kind of status. So like a step up from a green card.
Well, I had the green card.
I had that for 40 years. And then, of course, when I moved back to Canada and I'm no longer a U.S. resident, I had to surrender that.
Yeah, same with me with my green card. I didn't surrender it until one day they pulled me over at the border and said, "You better give that back, son, or I'm going to call the judge."
Yeah, you have to live there for 6 consecutive months or you're not eligible anymore.
Yeah, and I was coming back and forth
I'll never live there again, especially now.
Especially now. So your new record is Say Something, and who are the people involved? You've got a special group of musicians helping you out on this one, I take it?
Yeah, I have 4 of my best friends, actually. Lou Pamonti was one of the main guys. Lou toured with Blood, Sweat, and Tears in the 1980s. He's, of course, one of the most esteemed musicians in Canada, has produced and arranged people like Michael Bublé and Anne Murray, and he's just a brilliant guy and a very close friend. And we had the idea originally that we started talking one day about how music had lost its message. Other than rap and some hip-hop tunes, which are mostly like a gangster kind of message, but the social message that we had back in the 60s, the message that was carried by guys like Dylan, where did that go? And there's so much to write about today. Like I said, it's a circus. It's a circus out there.
It is.
A tremendous wealth of material. And not just Donald Trump. There's more craziness in the world than Donald Trump. So I spent several months and just started putting together lyric ideas and little melody ideas with Lou. And we attracted a couple of other people into the project. And we ended up with 4 guys. We decided we weren't going to go with big band on this one, that we're going to make the whole album with 4 guys. And it's Eric St. Laurent on guitar, and Mark Rogers on bass, and Davide Dorenza on drums, and Lou Pamonti and me. And I co-wrote all of the songs with the musicians. So you'll notice that every song on there is pretty much co-written with somebody.
Yep.
And the whole idea was to make an album called Say Something and make it say something. So we go after everything that we're talking about every day. Climate change, gun violence, immigration, all the stuff that comes off your TV every day. We see it, we live it, it's our life. That's what we wrote the songs about. Although there is one nice song in there about Canada.
Oh, good. Well, we got to get a nice one in there once in a while.
I wanted to close with a nice song on the album because some of the songs are a little dark. Although we tried not to be, as you said earlier, ranting and raving, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be a little more subtle about it. I mean, how do you write about a song about Donald Trump? Well, the first thing you do is you don't mention his name.
Oh, of course not. Yeah.
And that's the song King Midas. Everybody hears it and knows immediately who it's about.
Right.
So who else lives in a golden tower?
and the emperor has no clothes, and oh well.
Exactly, but you don't need to go and say it.
Yes. But since leaving Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Say Something is not your first disc. You've had lots of others out in between.
I've been doing an album a year for the last 13 years.
Another one that comes to mind is your Canadiana. So you took Canadian songs.
Canadiana is a beautiful album, big orchestra album.
Mm-hmm.
Again, done with Lou Pamonti. Did it a few years ago. But, you know, it's something interesting just happened this last week. In between Canadiana and Say Something, we had an album called Mobius.
Right. Okay.
I've just consolidated all my albums under one label. I am now with True North Records. And True North bought up all of my old catalog, going right back to 2005. So I have like 6 albums now on their label. One of the albums was called Mobius. And on the album was a song that I wrote 4 or 5 years ago called Long Night. And a musician friend of mine called me and said, that song's all about like first responders, right? I said, yeah. Like nurses, and, you know, it's a thank you to nurses and doctors and ambulance drivers and paramedics and policemen, and well, that's what's going on today.
It is.
And you wrote the song 4 years ago.
Right.
So the record company called me up and said, geez, we just listened to that again. That song has got to come out now. So actually today it was just released as a video.
Great. So we'll put that
it's
on
called Long Night.
A Long Night?
Yeah, check it out. It'll be on Facebook by the time we finish talking, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
It's going up right now as we speak.
Great. And Dear Mr. Obama is another song from the Say Something. So I guess...
Hey, you got good ears, man. You're picking all my favorites.
Just more...
I love that one.
Yes, and so I take it you kind of like the guy.
Oh, of course. I mean, what do you got to compare it against?
True.
When I see Trump and Obama split screen, here's one guy with dignity and grace and intelligence, thoughtfulness, class, dignity, decency, and another guy with none of them.
Right. So
Not hard to make your choice. I can't figure out why still a third of the country in the States is still behind this guy. I think it's crumbling, but not fast enough.
I don't understand it either. It's like, yep, there's always going to be that, we'll knock it down a bit to the 30 or 40% of the voters are always going to be behind him, no matter what.
Well, I toured the United States for 40 years.
Right.
Coast to coast, every town, village, hamlet, and city in the country. I know that country inside and out, intimately. And it's really two different countries. You have some very, very smart, highly educated, really decent people there. And then you have these people that are storming the State House in Michigan with AR-15s.
I know. Like, what's that all about? Jeez.
They're Trumpers. They're Trump people.
Well,
that's what he has ignited down there. And it's fucking scary. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. We're unedited here. We don't do anything before, after, or during.
Well, let me just say, that is scary. I've never been afraid to go to the United States. I am right now. Not just because I might get an infection, because it's out of control down there, but the violence. And the country's coming apart.
It is.
And Trump has ripped it right down the middle. And if he loses in November, I promise you this, and you can remember I said it, he will start a civil war. He will fire up those gun-toting evangelicals that back him up, and we will have armed confrontation in the United States.
And the thing is...
He's that dangerous.
He is. What I was thinking was the Democrats shouldn't worry so much about electing a president as taking the Senate and the House of Congress, because then they can... hopefully keep an eye on things. It's like having a minority government up here. You can at least keep the party in power in check a little bit. So,
listen, we have a very stable, orderly government up here. We have a common sense government. You may agree with them, you may not agree with them, but we don't go around burning state houses down,
Yeah. Well, when you have...
We've always been very sensible. Even our handling of the pandemic was methodical. We got on it early. Do you know that the death count in Canada is 1/10 what it is in the United States? 1/10.
Yep, or less.
That's per capita. That's per capita. It's crazy.
It's crazy.
They had 2,000 deaths in Detroit. Across the border, right across the Ambassador Bridge, 2 miles away in Windsor, per capita, 10% of that. 200.
200. Yep. Well, it's like...
Now, there's a reason for that. It's that our government seems to have its shit together.
Yep. And we're a bit less, as a people, don't react so violently one way or the other. We kind of sit back and think about things. I mean, you're talking about a country that had separatists as the official opposition. So...
Not too long ago.
Can't get more democratic than that. saying, okay,
That's right.
we think your viewers are stupid, but the voters put you there, so there you go.
But one thing I've always known about Canada is that we're threatened, whether it's an enemy, a pandemic, or whatever, Canadians pull together. We've always done that.
Yes.
We've always been Canadians first and then Liberals and Conservatives second. They've lost that in the States.
Yes. So let's go back, let's reminisce a bit, if you don't mind. I remember I was in high school in Saskatoon in the mid-'60s, and I left shortly thereafter and didn't come back till a few years ago.
I love Saskatoon. It's one of my favorite towns in the country.
I remember...
Not because I've got friends there, but it's just a delightful town with the college and everything.
Yep. And I remember Take Me Back. Now, that was David Clayton-Thomas and the Shays.
Yes, it was.
And then Breakdown was a wonderful record. I mean, I couldn't get enough of that one.
You mean Brainwashed?
Brainwashed, sorry.
Yeah, you said? I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
Yeah, Brainwashed, not Breakdown. Brainwashed. I even have it written down right here, 1966. But it was beautiful. Did you make any money?
Yeah, well, that record was number one in Canada for 16 weeks, and we never did get it released in the States.
Well, what?
Ahead of its time.
Yep. So you were around, well, I guess you went to New York a bit later 60s, but I was in the radio business for 30 years, and the Canadian talent regulations, I'll call them, came in, and a bunch of my contemporaries just thought that was the stupidest thing on the face of the planet. We don't need those kind of things. If records are good, they'll get played, blah, blah, blah.
Well, that's what Joni Mitchell said. She said it very publicly. Play my music because it's as good as anything in the world, not because the government makes you play it.
Right, but without some incentive to play it, the records wouldn't get played because everybody's influenced by Billboard and Cashbox, and a record by Witness Incorporated from Saskatoon wasn't going to get nationwide play because it wasn't a big hit in the States.
Well, that doesn't show a lot of confidence in your artists.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
They're some of the greatest artists in the world. I mean, we have some of the greatest songwriters that ever walked the planet. We don't need a government handout to get Leonard Cohen played or get Gordie Lightfoot played,
Well, you have to get them started somewhere is what I think. It's like hockey in the U.S., California, nobody played it until Gretzky got traded to the Kings, and now you get NHL players from California, dime a dozen, because there has to be a little bit of an incentive, I think, to get rolling. That's the only argument I have. I'm not disputing your experience. I'm just saying that's why I was always behind it a bit, because I knew the people I worked with were never going to play a record unless it was a big hit in the States.
Oh, yes. Well, that's Canada of the 60s.
Yes.
When I went to New York in 1968, I was coming off of 4 consecutive number one hits in Canada. I was still working in the same bar that I'd been working in 4 years before.
Yes, right.
There was no industry here.
Nope.
There is now.
Yep.
But now the Canadian content regulations are almost irrelevant.
Oh, yeah, I know. My wife and I used to do a 2-hour jazz show on a public station here in Saskatoon. And just for fun one day, I decided to see what I could do to upset the ratios. And so without even trying, and this is jazz, which is not, real popular, 95% Canadian content. And I didn't even try that hard to get Canadian artists. They were just everywhere. So I think we're both...
Oh, yeah, I know. We're knee-deep in artists up here. And that was one of the reasons why a lot of the artists didn't like Canadian content, because it has a couple of adverse effects too. There's a certain amount of Darwinism in music. If something's really good, it will rise to the top. It will survive. And what you did by saying, okay, we're going by 4 points of Canadian content to value a music, Well, you got a lot of crap on the radio up here that never would have made it in the first place and never did make it outside of Canada. But it had a leg up from the government to get on the radio up here. Mm-hmm. And so the whole quality of Canadian music was lowered by that. To the point where if you went to, in the 70s or 80s, and went to, say, a Clive Davis or a David Geffen and said, hey, I got the #1 record in Canada. Can I get a U.S. release? You go, #1 record in Canada. Is it by a Canadian? You say, yeah. Oh, well, of course it's #1 record in Canada. Next.
Well, I think we're going at the same conclusion from different angles, because my thoughts was that doing that helped build the substructure with management and recording studios and engineers and then people getting to make a living.
How did that work out for you?
Well, not for me, because I wasn't involved in that side.
Well, how did it work out, period?
Radio. I stayed in radio for 30 years. It was, great job if you don't want to make any money. So
That's right.
That's right.
Like being a Canadian artist. So the worthwhile artist did what artists do. We moved to New York, we moved to LA, we moved to Nashville. We went to where the action is. We're going to do that anyway, Canadian content or no.
Gotcha.
And most of the people who were left behind up here are the ones who wouldn't have made it anyway without Canadian content help.
You know what? You got me there.
True.
Speaking of...
Now it's all irrelevant.
Yep.
It's just totally irrelevant.
Totally.
Because there is no recording industry. It's gone. It's over.
Yep. Well, that's true.
Sadly. It was Spotify out of existence. It's gone.
I take it you don't like Spotify too much.
Don't like it. They're crooks. They're thieves.
So they're
stealing my music.
They play your
Spotify
stuff.
is the biggest theft of intellectual property in history.
Oh, so they play your stuff, but you don't get royalties?
Of course not. They don't pay anybody. If a record of mine gets played on your radio station, I think, what do you pay me, 2 cents? Something like that?
Something like that, because we had to fill out those charts all the time with...
BMI, SOCAN charts, yeah.
Those kind of things, yep.
Stream on Spotify pays 0.00069 of 1 penny per use. Frampton Alive just got a big lawsuit against Spotify because he did 30 million streams and he got a check for $1,200. 30 million streams, they paid him $1,200.
And we could know what Spotify got out of that when you have 30 million...
Daniel Ek, who is the president of Spotify, is a billionaire.
And I don't think David Clayton-Thomas is a billionaire quite yet.
No, that's not... I wouldn't use that term for me. No, I'm okay. I'm comfortable, but good. I'm no billionaire.
How do you keep your voice in such good shape? You're a bit older than me, and I'm an old guy.
I don't know. It just seems to get stronger all the time. I was very surprised when I went into the studio to do. A lot of people were surprised that I was 77 years old when I went in to say something, and even the engineers are going, "Hey, your voice is stronger than it was 5 years ago." I love it. If you love to do something, you just transcend all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've got a story for you. There was a guy I know here in Saskatoon. He's actually fixing some old manual typewriters for me. But his dad played guitar at the Hawk's Nest.
Sure.
And the Coq d'Or. And he said...
I lived there. They were my homes.
He said that he backed you up when you did your first open mic there.
Not surprised.
So,
what was his name?
Well, I said I wouldn't say it, but it was Chalowski.
Not Joey.
I don't know what his name was. This is the guy's father, so he didn't tell me the name, but...
Joey Tchaikovsky, who played with the Rogues, with Donnie Toriano's band.
He was in a lot of bands. He told me he was in a lot of bands, and he got replaced by Ronnie...
You're the same guy. He's an organ player.
He got replaced by Robbie Robertson. So.
Yep.
something like that. Anyway, where can we reach you? You obviously have a website, so.
Oh, yeah, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. I'm all over the place there. And, of course, you're already in touch with Eric Alper.
Yep.
So, yeah, when you get it all edited up, send it to Eric. He'll make sure I get to hear it.
Oh, certainly. Well, we don't really do any editing. We just put in a plug for our Patreon account. And that's
So you're not going to take my F-bomb out, huh?
No, not at all. It makes it exciting. So
this is the HBO of radio, right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay.
One more question here. You also have your book is Blood, Sweat, and Tears. That must be still.
Oh, that's been out for years and years. Yeah.
Still available?
Oh, sure.
Yep. Good.
Sure, it's on Amazon. It's everywhere. It's on a major publisher, is Penguin Press. So that'll be available forever. That'll be around when I'm gone.
Well. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and we'll make sure people visit the David Clayton-Thomas website, and we'll get them to order records. Something? Yeah.
Yeah. If you're pissed off about what's going on in the world right now, then you should go out and buy a copy of Say Something, because it's a pissed off record.
Perfect. We will do that. Okay.
All right, Dennis. Good talking with you, man. You take care out there in Saskatoon. Well, you're not in Saskatoon. What's your town?
Radisson. It's 45 minutes west.
Of Saskatoon?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty country.
Good. Okay, don't go away. I'll check. Let me check this, and then we'll get back to you. So hang on, all right?
I'll run right now anyway, so.
Okay. All right, we'll talk to you soon.
Well, good. Good talking with you, Dennis.
Thanks very much.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
You know that it takes all you got to do the job you do. Takes all you got just to get you through the long night. Reaching out to you, and you will be there, 'cause that's just what you do. Long night ahead, looks like a long night ahead.
Thank you for visiting with us today. This is Talking Books and Stuff with Dennis Rimmer. Contact him at dennis@talkingbooks.tk. Thank you, and may all the good news be yours. Oh, and don't forget to check out his book, The Great Canadian Notebook, available across Canada and at amazon.ca.